Welcome to Teachers Transition Podcast, a show dedicated to supporting teachers transition in, through, and out of education. Grab your seat and let's talk about how to make your next transition a successful one. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Teachers Transition Podcast, where we're helping teachers transition in, transition through, and transition out of education. And as always, I am blessed and just fortunate to have a colleague of mine. I spent so many years in New York working with. He is not a teacher in the sense that classroom teacher, but he played such a vital role as a social worker, helping and supporting our students and helping and supporting teachers. So if you welcome to the stage, welcome to our audience today, Mr. Gordon Gooden. Can you say hello to our audience today?
Alex, thank you so much. It's so good to see you. I mean, I was just thinking how many years we worked together, but it's just great. Every time I see your face, you're just such a warm presence. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I'm honored to have you as a guest. For those of you that have been in education, if you're fortunate to work in a building like middle elementary school, it was an environment where we were a family. Every teacher knew each other. We got married together. We raised kids together. We cried together. It was just a warm environment, an environment where as much as I enjoy working in the buildings and districts I had, it's second to none. It's been a special environment. I'm hoping nothing against my districts I'm working today, but there was a special chemistry with all of our leaders there. And Gordon, you were, again, just want to give you your flowers. You are just a gem. One, you're another male.
There's only two of us, right?
Exactly.
There are a lot of women.
Exactly.
I love them all, but every time I come to Alex, I'm like,
exactly. So we're a dying breed, and just watching you so many times with students and working with parents and seeing the care and concern. I mean, you're just an outstanding young man. I'm gonna say young man, and
young man, right?
yes, you're still, and also seeing you navigate with your colleagues, the other psychologists, and it was just a great honor. So I want to jump in today talking about. Say again.
So it was a great time for all of us.
It was a great time.
That building is still like home to me.
Yes,
so,
yes.
I'm somewhere else too, and I love it. But like you said, special memories there. So
absolutely. Well, let's jump in. Yeah. As I said before, you are a social worker. Can you tell us also about family life? And we know that you transitioned from social work to even something bigger and more impactful.
Yeah. So, I've been a school social worker now in the school district this is year 30, Alex, which is crazy to think about. So now the kids I had 30 years ago have had kids, and now I'm working with some of theirs. So that's sad and a blessing at the same time, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I have been fortunate enough to be in the school district, mostly kindergarten level. I've done some work in middle school and high school over the years and summer schools. I also work with our homeless population in my school district. And I've been doing that for 30, this is year number 30. And I am a father. I've been married for 26 years. I got two girls that, our kids are in the same areas. My 23 and 22 just graduated college, both of them. Yes. I'm tuition-free dad, man. How about that?
Congrats.
Yes. So, and about 10 years ago, I kind of had this itch of like doing something more. Something more with with the work I do. I love the work I do. And I dabbled into starting private practice. And then I always tell the story. It's kind of it accidentally turned into a group practice, which means I have many, many therapists working for me now. But that was never the plan. It was just to do a little extra work on the side. And we found a spot where we just kind of built on that. And, I'm very blessed to have the best of both worlds, one foot in the private sector, one foot still in the public sector with my school job. And that's kind of my story. So if you would have told me 15 years ago I'd be doing both of these things, I'd say you're crazy, but this is what sometimes happens, right?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So when you journey back, what inspired you to kind of take on this call and great responsibility? It's not just a job in terms of a label, it's a great responsibility. And I will say, you know, you mentioned about the homeless, I definitely, has a special place in my heart. Our family, we ran a food pantry, and just seeing the care that you gave to those students, was just remarkable. And you treated everyone with such great dignity, and it was just so wonderful to see you, just interacting. Again, I can't express how privileged I've had. I've seen a lot of social workers, a lot of great social workers, just the care and the concern and the genuineness, it was just remarkable. And it doesn't surprise me that you are leading a practice, because I kind of saw that, you managing our friends, our psychologists and parents. That was a whole management practice. It's in of itself. So
you get a wide variety of experience working in a school.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of what, in terms of what got me into the practice, or what got me into the school system.
Well, either, like kind of, because to me, it's all connected,
You were so right. Like, it's like something happens here at a small point in your life, and then it just somehow, I call it trusting the process, and it just follows it, I got into social work because, quite honestly, Alex, I was not the best student. Mm-hmm. I was a young man had a lot of issues, my own mental health issues, and struggled in school, and really, really struggled right into college, and really kind of really hit a bottom there. I had some substance abuse issues. I mean, alcohol. I've never really told you this, but it was a bad time because of all of my stuff, but there were people along the way who believed in me.
Yes.
There were people along the way who said, especially in high school, and I always mention my hero, which is Karen Schlendorf, who was my guidance counselor in high school, who, no matter what a train wreck I was, always would check on me, every morning of my senior year. And she got me through it. And eventually, I hit my bottoms, and I started my life over, been sober, gazillion years now. But that was what started it, people who believed in me. And once I got, my life together and got sober and things like that, I found, I wanted to kind of give that back.
Sure.
Like I remember Miss Schlendorf for the compassion and empathy she had for me. And I was like, I want to do that to somebody else, because that was a gift, and so that just led me down a path that someone introduced me to social work. And I was like, how can I give something back? And I dabbled into the world of social work and started coaching a little bit. I was in coaching and then getting into social work. And then figured, the plan was always to help kids like myself in high school I was a mess in high school, so I was like, I'd be good to help the kids in high school,
Sure.
And once my placements came, I got placed in elementary schools and middle schools, and I got to tell you, I just loved it. So it's like, trust the process. And I ended up in elementary schools, and I was fortunate enough to get a job in another district. And then, I've been in my current district now for, like I said, 30 years. And it's just been, so it's one of those things you just could have predicted it. No.
Yeah.
But it just happened,
Yeah. Wow. That's a very profound, testimony experience about, your own challenges and how that you use that. And that kind of also helps me understand, the genuineness and authenticity. Because some people, when they don't go through things, there's a disconnect. They might want to be empathetic, but when you go through an experience, you have, some related challenges, it gives you an extra heart for, someone.
I remember what it was like to struggle bit, and as we all do, even as adults, we still go through.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Like to know what kids go through, and my story wasn't nearly as difficult as many of the students I work with. So it's like to try to be there is like, and be supportive to these families and students who are going through something serious, whether it's mental health, whether it's homelessness, whether there's abuse, and there's a variety of things that I was never even exposed to in my upbringing, right? Mm-hmm. That, if I can help plant a seed to help maybe that family, it's I love that part of it. It's frustrating, it's hard, but I know, and it's we're in different fields as music and social work, but I know you and I've seen you do the same thing. Like that's your heart's there. And I it's one of the things I've always respected and loved about you, my friend. So
thank you.
How we do it, it's got to come from a heart, and I think I've been fortunate, whether it's through my own struggles or whatever, but it started there and it's just really grown. And I just,
awesome.
And I'm so blessed to be in this field because it's provided every chapter of my life has provided more and more in just terms of fulfillment,
It sure does. And, from time to time I have, some of my former students who are now in their mid 30s reach out to me and say, hey, this is the impact, you made. And, we don't always know. We kind of have a clue that, we smile, we did something, but just to hear it, years later kind of, reinforces that what we do does matter and it makes a profound impact.
Profound. I always say we're planting seeds.
Yes.
We may never see that tree grow, but we're planting seeds. And some of them may get blown away in the wind, and others may take root. Right.
Yes.
And a lot of times, especially, we're a small window, whether it's 5 or 6 years in elementary school, you may not see it. But just like you said, like when they come back, I had the same thing. People come back, Mr. Gooding, you're still here? Like,
exactly.
The fact that they remember my name, it's like, wow, what an honor, right? So
yes.
Those are the seeds that we plant, and hopefully some people take some and some will grow.
Okay.
Right?
Awesome. Well, let's transition to talking about mental health and, challenges. And you kind of refer to or talk about deliberate intention. And how has that philosophy guided you to work with educators and students alike?
I love the word deliberate, because I think one of the things, now that I've been in this field for a long time, both privately and schools, is the world likes to talk about mental health a lot, but are we really making it important?
Yeah.
It's one thing to say this is important. It's another thing to treat it as it is important.
Yes.
Right. So like I can talk a good game about mental health and taking care of myself, but then I keep working myself, 18-hour days and not spending time with my wife and kids.
Yes.
That's a good talk, but are you doing it?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And that's why I've always kind of been like, we really need to be deliberate about these things. It's what are we doing? Not just like, oh, by the way, I think back to my week and be like, oh, I took a nap this week, or I had that dinner with my wife, but looking forward and saying, how can I prioritize what's important to me? Right.
Okay.
How do I refuel, whether it's spending time with the loved ones, making sure to exercise, making sure we're sleeping and eating enough. That's what I mean kind of by like deliberate intention. And
awesome. So you mentioned about, stressors, can you identify, you've mentioned some of them, but I think sometimes, with teachers and people in general, that we kind of get used to the monotony and that we kind of forget, hey, that is a stressor and I should be aware of it. I should be deliberate and intentional, one, identifying and having some kind of a course of action. So can you talk about, stressors you've seen with educators and more students,
Listen, I think what our educators have faced, and we talked a little bit before this, it just grows over the years.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's so much greater than it was back in the, early
good old days.
the old. I don't want to be like the old guy back in my day,
Yes, yes.
But I think the responsibilities for teachers have just seems to like just multiply, not even like double. Like it just seems like you got to be an educator. You got to be a management person, knowing how to deal with management. You know how to write curriculum. You got to know how to be a little bit of a social worker, to how to engage parents and families. Like you have to do all these things. And as you know better than anyone, I think teaching can be very lonely when you're a classroom teacher in front of a class of 20 kids, and you're the only adult in that room. There's pressure there. It's a lot, right? There
is.
So. I think the stressors have only grown. I think that that part of teaching that's so isolating is the part I always try to we got to remember, like when teachers get out of their hole and they start talking to other people, like anything, and you get that, I call it like the Me Too's. We had the Me Too movement. Everyone kind of came forward because I identified with this thing that's going on. Same thing with teachers. And when they feel so alone and they start talking to each other and like, oh, like there's connection.
Yeah.
That's one of the best, I think one of the most underutilized stress reduction and coping tools is connection with
It
people.
is.
We're social beings, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
That's why it's good when they're, people are getting to the cafe, the staff room in the middle, lunchtime and
Exactly.
talk and laugh and whatever. Like that's a really healthy thing.
Yeah.
Because we all need that sense of connection and community, like church and
Yes.
everything else, right?
Well, even in addition to that, I've learned, even more recently, just going out of the building, getting out of my classroom, going for a walk, getting a coffee, getting something to drink, you know, um, it's so important because, you know, you feel like you're locked in that room and trapped, not trapped. Well, it sometimes it kind of
It
feels that
feels
way.
like it does.
Yeah.
Except,
Yeah.
listen, when you have to ask a teacher, I have teachers, and they have to ask me to watch their class, like go use the bathroom. That's kind of trapped, right?
Yeah.
So there is that piece to it that they are kind of trapped.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because for 20 something 2 years, you know, having to now not go to the bathroom at will, and
Bathroom whenever you want, right?
and it's a funny story. One of our colleagues, she would always catch me in the hall when I had like 3 minutes to go to the bathroom. She would run to talk with me. I'm like, I got to the
Go.
bathroom. I'm like, that's a stressor. I'm like, give me a minute, So,
Exactly. Like you said, that connection, those movements, those little things. I mean, I always break down mental health, and I don't want to soapbox it, but I really always break it down to three basic things.
Okay.
Which is connection. How do
Okay.
we connect with people? Movement.
Yes.
Are we moving our bodies? And nurturance. Right.
Okay.
So if those are like the building, for me, those are the building blocks of mental health. Before you
Sure.
get into therapy and all this stuff, are you connecting with people? Or are you living a life alone? Right. Or are you in your classroom alone? Or are you home alone? Or you're not sharing people with the stress and the pressure you feel, right? Are you connecting with others? Are you moving? Like you said, I love when I leave at lunch to go somewhere and I see two teachers out walking. I'm like, I love them. I can get into the science of that. There's so much like physical brain science behind walking, movement, bilateral stimulation that helps us process stress and emotions. That's great. And nurturance is like just how we take care of ourselves, whether it's eating, sleeping. I often joke, when I'm stressed and I go home and watch Game of Thrones, it doesn't help my stress level at all, right? Like, I go home and watch Everyone Loves Raymond or The Office. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like how we ingest and what we're putting into our body in terms of nurturance.
Sure.
Whether it's digital nurturance or reading or just sleep and eat. So I don't know. I always repeat those 2 points because I think it's really everything builds off that. And you just mentioned it. Like you feel the difference when you're doing those things, when you're connecting, moving, and you're taking care of yourself in some way.
You do, and hopefully it helps, to prevent burnout. I mean, I will share even with our audience, teaching for over 25 years. There was a point, recently about 2 years ago when I felt just burned out. Just doing what I'm doing, working, so much, and can you share with us, how can teachers recognize the early signs of burnout? Because with me, you kind of think oh, you just gotta keep going, you gotta keep pushing. This is what the trail. Exactly. This is who we are. This is part of the job.
We got to do this, and it's just this. I think it's like that kind of stuck mindset, that we have no control over it, and that's where I always feel like burnout happens for me. Is when I start feeling I have no power in my life or something. When it comes to burnout, I mean, I think it's something we all struggle with, and especially teaching. You'll feel the physical exhaustion. You'll feel a sense of irritability often when you're burnt out. There's a cynicism and negativity that comes through sometimes with people, especially for those of us.
Yes.
Listen, I know you. I feel like we're both pretty positive people. I've had days where I'm like, I feel the negativity coming out of me, and I'm like, something's up with me. This is because it's not about the setting. This is about something's up with me, right? When I start withdrawing socially, that's another sign of burnout, right? And the biggest thing is like if we have something you love, and you start not to enjoy it, something's up.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know the teachers we are, and I've worked with all these amazing teachers, and I seen them like I know what they're good at. I know what they love to do, and you can see when they're struggling because sometimes it's missing. And maybe that's we got things at home, we got things in life, we got parents are getting older. We're in that sandwich generation now. You and I, with worried about our parents and worried about our kids. So it's a real thing, which comes back to the point of being so deliberate about things like nurturance, connection, and movement. Like some building blocks. Like, are we really making these a priority? Because it's gonna it can happen to all of us.
Yeah.
And it sneaks up on us, and it's just, I've been there a few times in my career, and it's I don't like it, because I love what I do, and when I stop loving what I do,
exactly.
Yeah.
I like a lot of the signs you mentioned, especially the one about being negative and maybe more sarcastic, because I've seen that occur very outwardly in some colleagues that are going through a hard time, or even internally where I'm like, I'm not so positive, or I'm not as patient with my students, or I'm not demonstrating a growth mindset, or everything, that my administrator is doing, I just see it as a personal attack,
Yeah. And that's where I always stop and not always, let's be clear. Nothing's always,
Sure.
I felt a good game, but I'm still human here, but
yeah.
I do try to recognize those points when it's like, all of a sudden that if someone's, getting to me more than they usually do, it's like, it's not them. Something's up with me. Where am I? What's going on? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling just, I had too much on my plate, or are we not heard in some way? But they're very, the signs of burnout sneak up on us. And I think that's the biggest one is most people I know get into teaching because they love it.
Yeah.
And when we start getting really negative and we start thinking that we're trapped, that we have no choices, it's very defeating, right?
Yeah. And that's definitely, a big part of this podcast. Yes, we talked about, teachers transitioning in, transitioning up, and transitioning out. And sometimes, I've definitely spoken to a lot of teachers that are looking to transition out because they've hit that wall and they can't, it's got too far where they feel they can't see anything else, and, they feel that they're being, it's more hurting them, to teach because they got to this point or place in their life, where it feels, unrecoverable,
Yeah, no, and I think it's funny because my transition from public school as social worker to outside counsel really was based in some of that. Like, I had been doing this for 15.
Exactly.
Like 15 years of doing the same thing over and over. I love the people I work with.
Sure.
I love them, right?
Yeah.
And yet it was very high stress all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then two things happened that I feel like revitalized my entire career, which was one was I left the building I loved, which sounds weird because I love that building,
Sure.
And it forced me to go to another building and practice skills again. And I had to do it from scratch again. And it was invigorating.
Wow.
Right? Like, it was like nobody knew Mr. Gooding there. They only
exactly.
Knew
yeah.
So it was like, that was like stimulating for me mentally.
Sure.
And then the other transition was as I built the private practice, with, I call social work in the schools is kind of like triage, like you're in an ER.
Yes.
You can kind of get people stable, but then you got to send them somewhere.
Absolutely.
So I was able to then like kind of be on the other side of that and help families, more long-term and in a more supportive way and give more dedicated time. And that really invigorated it. So it's like, sometimes we have to reinvent ourselves sometimes. I mean, that's my opinion. We have to reinvent sometimes, especially if we're feeling stale and burnt out. Like, what can we do differently? Whether, and that's my question I always ask. If you're burned out, what can we do differently?
Yeah. And that resonates with me because, as you say that, I left, I left, a building that, I thought I was going to retire. Loved it. My wife, got a job in Texas, and I thought it was going to be the worst thing in the world because ideal situation, one building, one district, for 16 years, loved the kids, knew our families. Like I share with my kids now that, hey, I could, my old school in New York, I could tell, your brother's in 5th grade, your older brother's in 12th, your older sister's in, second year college,
Yes.
your older,
I know
you,
everybody. The whole
exactly,
yes.
But now that you mention that, that just kind of really triggered something in terms of when I did leave and I went to another district, it kind of reinvigorated because again, you're not doing the same. Everyone know, it's
Suddenly you
people don't
realize
know your name.
you thought you did. That's
Exactly.
And
you got to reinvent yourself because you don't have those same people and roles. So it's like you got to find yourself, and students don't know you.
It's a mix of two things, right? It's
Yeah.
a mix of one. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that the first week of going to my new school, which I also adore, if anyone's listening, I wasn't like, did I do the wrong thing? Maybe I should. Like, it was like I wanted to run back.
Yes.
Right? But in the long, but that's what change is. Change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And how do we deal with discomfort? If we're going to do something different, it's going to feel different, and we got to walk through that discomfort. It's like you said. And all of a sudden, you get on the other side, and I'm like, wait, this is kind of fun again.
Yeah.
Like I don't know these families. It was just, I don't know. I use the word invigorating because it was. If there were 2 points in my career, that was it. It was moving from that building to the current building I am in, and also getting into this private world. Like you said, like we know a lot more than we think we do.
Yes, we sure do.
But it's not until we get a little uncomfortable, you're like, oh wait, I can do this.
Yeah. And it's funny because my next guest is actually my former director of music. And, I had to go through 3 years of an intense training that kind of reshaped my pedagogy and training as a music teacher. And it kind of helped me to, say, okay, there was the Baldwin years and now it's the Texas years. And I'm a whole different type of educator. Exactly.
I totally get that because that's how I am. I look back, I'm like, I am a different school social worker now with the tools I've gained along the way.
Yes.
I was 10 or 15 years ago. And not that I'm bad-mouthing either of them. It's just growth. And that's kind of, we need that. And that's why transitions are important.
Sure.
We all need a little stimulation of what we're going to do.
Well, unfortunately, everyone doesn't have the ability, unless you're in Texas, because we change district like almost like changing clothes. I know teachers change pretty quickly. If you don't have the ability to change to a different building, what are some other strategies to help, navigate with, burnout? Because this is real talk,
100%. And listen, it's not always like I just pack up and go to another school.
Yeah, it might be worse.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, but I always try to say is like, but what can we do different?
Yes.
Because I deal with this privately with clients who are, big, successful guys in business or teachers that are just, I see privately, and with our teachers I work with. It's if you're stuck doing the same thing, what can we do differently? We may not be able to get a new building. We may not even get to a new grade, but how can we approach it differently? What new skills can we bring into this? Is there a new reading program? Is there a new approach I'd like to try to use? Because I've been using, some of the same tools for many years. Yeah. Right. I work with interns now, and I tell them, I got a bunch of activities I've used for the last 30 years, but I'd rather see what you got.
Exactly.
That makes it more fun, right?
Like lesson plans. I got.
Exactly. So it's like, sometimes we get stuck in all the things we can't change, and that's a mindset we see in therapy, and it's a cognitive behavioral approach that we do. But it's like, what can we do differently? Because there's always something, right? There's some type of twist you can always do, whether it's even if it's your personal life, fulfill the nurturing and connection outside of school, and maybe that's more fulfilling than it carries over in school. But to do something when you're feeling burnt out, something's got to give. You just can't.
Yes.
Yeah. It can't keep going on that way.
You can, and
it can go on that way.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
It doesn't feel very good. It doesn't. I don't. You don't enjoy it as much, right?
Yes. And while we can take ownership, which is important, we also know, and you also know, that leadership and building climate can have a big effect. And can you talk about, what, because we have principals, superintendents, all kind of leaders that are listening on this podcast and saying, what can I do to help? Because, yes, like, we have calm down zones. We have SCLs, but what can we do to help teachers? You know,
I mean, I think first of all, your last guest you had on was fantastic. By the way, your last leader, I loved
Dr. Wortham. Yeah, she's.
Oh my God, I love that episode. She was so good. But yes, because it does come from the top down, and I think the one of the biggest things that whether it's in how we approach our teachers, or even what I do here in a therapy session, so much of what we do as mental health providers is validate.
Yes.
Right? And you'd be surprised how often teachers are not even validated and need to be, right? Because the school's got an agenda, they got a new curriculum, they got a new program, they all this stuff they have to get done, and sometimes we just need to hear the teacher saying that this is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know it doesn't sound like, and it won't change anything, but to understand it and to try to really hear them. So much of the world I'll see is, and if you've been in therapy or I've been in therapy, sometimes you can't fix it, but if someone understands it, it does move it. It does help a little bit, right? Yes. And especially from our leaders. And I've worked with a gazillion principals and superintendents, and you've seen the ones that stand out to me. I mean, our former Mrs. May, there's
shout out to Miss May.
No brighter star in my life when it comes to administrators, who was both supportive and kept us motivated and kept us to standards. Like, she had that perfect combination to
She did.
So I'm very proud to mention that name. But because she understood it and she validated and heard us what we're going through.
She did.
It's hard. It's being a leader in a school today. I think it's hard. Because there is so much of that. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. She was a champion, and that really helped the climate. And I will also say, that also helped us to set the climate. So I want to also take some ownership for teachers that we also can help that by setting the climate. Because, definitely as a music teacher, I could probably write a dissertation about, how there's a connection to students and behavior to a teacher, because, seeing 35 sections of music, you see some patterns of a certain teacher, wherever they are emotionally or whatever, or their management skill. It reflects in a lot of behaviors. And that also can add to, because I will tell you, as much as I'm trained to be a musician and an educator, a lot of the wear and tear is the emotional navigation of social emotional challenges with, students, and managing that. It's not even, can I teach my curriculum effectively? That's kind of maybe about maybe 20%. It's 80% of managing behaviors and helping kids go through all kind of, and I only see for 45 minutes, it's like, so.
But you know what, the strongest thing, and I say this whether it's at home or in the classroom, is I say this with parents a lot. Parents make the weather,
Yes.
We're parents that know how to take care of themselves, are well regulated. Not that we don't all get stressed and whatever, and have a calm presence, like I know you did managing a class. Like, you set an expectation. Everyone kind of, our kids adapt to that.
Yes, they do.
Right, and when people or adults are struggling, whether it's a parent, teacher, administrator, you name it, the people under it feel it.
Yes.
Right. So it's like taking care of ourselves is, I know it gives a lot of lip service sometimes and it sounds like fluff, but we set the tone.
We do.
Teachers and management, biggest part of managing a class is like being the example.
Yeah.
Right. And setting a tone and setting an expectation. And what I expect from you as my students, I expect nothing but the best. Right.
Yeah.
And when we get anxious, kids get anxious, or we get riled up, everybody escalates, how do we keep things calm, and set that tone? So it's critical.
It is critical. And I also want to shout out, my former administrators, all of them, even my current, my administrator, even, Miss Lemons, just getting those little postcards to say, hey, you did a great job here. Those go I remember the countless ones after concerts, and it's funny because now in Texas, in New York, I'm doing concerts. So, 2 major concerts every year. And now in Texas, I'm doing a fraction. I really don't do concerts anymore. It's more.
You were so good at those, yeah.
Thank you. And I reflect how now, I wish I kept those letters because I needed them. Now I'm in the, yeah.
They do. And it's like the littlest things,
Mm-hmm.
like we had I'm not going to name it. We had a staff development. I mean, when we had a meeting sometimes in our district, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you leave the teachers out 5 minutes early, do you know how far that goes?
Yes.
When you make
bring snacks. I mean,
simple it's like so simple. We're like children. Like, all right, the meeting goes to 4:15. If we end at 4:15, everyone leaves. You leave at 4:10. They're like, oh my God, that was so nice. That was fantastic.
Yes.
It was 5 minutes, but it's the little gestures. It's the snacks.
Yes.
It's the little notes. It's the, hey, I saw that and I appreciate that.
Yes.
Just like parents need to do with kids in some way. Like we all, positive works. It works, and it's really important. The little things add up to big things.
They do. I mean, we've talked about a lot of great things, but let's now dive into some more challenging things. When it comes to substance abuse, and it can always become a coping mechanism for stress. And from your experience, what advice would you give for teachers that are struggling with substance abuse or any other kind of abuse, whether it's food or something else that has sometimes just as much power, as a substance?
Yeah, nobody's immune to any of this, whether it's substance abuse, anxiety, depression, family dynamics. We could all, you can be the best teacher in the world or the best plumber in the world, but we're all susceptible to it, right? In some ways. So it does happen. I think the more we normalize mental health and start talking about things, the better we are. I mean, the generation we grew up with, nobody talked about mental health. It was like, I remember going to high school. He's down at the guidance counselor again. Nobody talked about that. Now, like, I can't get kids out of my office. So it's like it has gotten more normalized, but we need to let people know that it's a real thing, and substance abuse really is based out of an ability to cope in some way. Anxiety, depression. Sometimes there's other mental health things. It's a way of numbing, right? And when we don't have the coping skills, we fall into something that will numb us out, right? And we all numb out in some way. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be these lovely little devices we always have with us, right?
Netflix.
It could be shopping on Amazon. It could be video games. You name it. Like the human body wants to try to escape pain, right? And it often does that through that. So teachers are no different than anybody else. That's why it's the criticalness of being able to take care of ourselves and talk to people, right? Because we do see people who are struggling with things.
We do.
And we got to check in with them. Are you okay? Like, just to really check in with them. And I always come from a place of non-judgment, because it could be, I got a history. It could be me. Like it's not that they're doing anything wrong. They're struggling with something.
Sure.
And we got to teach people that you're not bad people. You're just struggling with something, and let's help it.
Sure. Right. Well, speaking, of your private practice, would you say, do you see an uptick of more students, more teachers, having to navigate with this stuff? Because I will say, just as a teacher, especially since the pandemic, and even personally, feeling burnt out, and I've seen a lot of teachers exit, and I've seen a lot of teachers struggle. Have you seen some of those trends as far as them? There's an uptick in people seeking out help.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people seeking out help. I see a lot of teachers struggling with it, and the kids that we have today are very different than what we had years ago. So our kids are struggling. We're in the midst of and people don't talk about this enough, in my opinion, but we are in the midst of an epidemic of sorts in terms of our kids and our mental health. Yeah. And not even our kids, because now it's happening to adults. Since 2012, when we started giving all our kids these devices, right?
Yeah.
Anxiety rates have skyrocketed. Rates of depression have skyrocketed. Suicidal ideation. There's that new book, The Anxious Generation. You can read all the stats in there. It's fascinating what has happened since we started putting all these devices in the hands of young people. right? So we have these young people who are more in crisis, have a greater, can't tolerate discomfort as well.
Yes.
Right, or going to these devices. They can't keep their attention as long, right? And now we're putting them in classrooms, and we're trying to keep
them Chromebooks.
Chromebooks, right? I'm like, what are we doing? They need to be around people, right? So, and then we're trying to teach these kids who are sometimes struggling with the basics because they haven't had as much, interactions, because that's a muscle. Being around people and interacting socially is a muscle.
Yeah.
And when we start taking that away with these devices, now sometimes teachers are spending more time managing conflicts than they are teaching math, because that muscle has not been worked with some of our young kids. So go ahead.
Yeah, that is so true. And, I'm sure all of my teachers, can ring out as the choir saying, over the last, since 2012, and even, 2020, 21, and the kids not being around in the social environment, that has, made our job so much more challenging, where, we're dealing with. And I think people need to understand, like, what would you say, like, before 2012, what were kids like? Like, because I think people, if they were not born, or they, didn't have kids, they don't have a clue. So kind of give us a sense of students, your interactions back then, before.
I think, and I know you've seen it too, is like just some of the basics as they came to kindergarten, to be able to maintain their attention longer, to be able to follow directions a little bit longer, to be able to interact with other kids, because they were around other kids all the time. So they were used to it. They weren't on devices and just separate, right? So over time that, if you spent, let's say, 6 hours a day around other kids, or out of a 12-hour day, let's say you spend 8 hours a day around other kids, and all of a sudden now you're on devices, and now you're only spending 4 hours with face-to-face interactions. That muscle's not going to be as strong, and it carries over. And that's what we've seen. Again, book The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt, I love it, because the basics are not there as much. So we're spending a lot more time, especially in early elementary school, talking about following directions, lining them up. Just the simple things, and
monotonous stuff over and over again,
and competing with attention. They're on TikTok. They're used to 30-second lessons. We have to. You can't explain addition in 30 seconds in a TikTok, right? We're competing, and it's literally changing our young people's brains in a lot of ways. So it's really it's a serious challenge. And it's difficult. And I think now some of the parents are starting to catch on to that. Maybe this isn't working for us, and we got to start looking at how do we do it differently. But
that's funny that you mentioned that, because definitely, when I put out the podcast episodes, I usually, do a clip of something impactful, and kind of watching the analytics as far as how long people watch stuff, and just thinking of how the TikTok and the people are so impatient, and kids are so amped up, and like, so what would you recommend? How does a parent help to shift the paradigm, because you can't take these away? How do we now shift back?
Exactly, you can't take them away. However, we can teach them how to use them responsibly. Right? And remember, we make the weather. If my girls saw me on my phone all the time,
that's true.
They're watching. But I'm just on work. It's okay. I'm so guilty of that.
I'm guilty.
And my girls got onto the phones right around that 2013 time. Like, we didn't know. We just thought it was, good, we can get in touch with them at school, and they need to call us. Like, we thought it was good, right? So now that we know more different, it's like, what can we do different? You can't take them away. You're not going to, however, how do we put some limits on it? How do we, there's a big push of not having kids on some of these devices before 8th grade.
Okay.
Which I think is a very smart way, brain development wise and everything else. But it also involves community. How do we get our communities together to say,
buy-in?
Every time you put me in front of a group of elementary parents, I'm like, get them off the devices. They don't need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get them outside playing with each other, because there'll be time. They're going to need this in the future. They don't need it. And they're in second and third grade to text their friends. Like, have them call each other, have them get together. Right. Because
Yeah, it's funny because not funny, but in my classroom we practiced community circles, and I had a kindergarten group, and one girl, kindergarten, said, I asked them, what are you looking forward to? She says, well, I'm looking forward to my birthday because my mom's going to get me a phone. I'm like, get you a phone at kindergarten? Like, what? I mean, I remember, I think I was like a teenager when we got those alphanumeric pages, and I thought, we
oh
were
man,
so,
that was cool. Yes.
or those, trail devices, they had the whole. And now it's,
Well,
it, kids
and
don't know what a rotary phone is. Kids don't know,
no,
this basic, encyclopedia. What's that?
oh, encyclopedias, right? Now we're dating ourselves, man.
The world's like, according to ChatGPT, I'm like,
Wow. I think we should have a different degree now that we've graduated college without ChatGPT. But
yeah.
But again, like that parent, right? Like that parent, we got to acknowledge that she wants to do what's best for her child. She wants to make her child happy. Like, she doesn't want her child also to be left out of this thing. So it's like, we have to start educating these parents of, like, of getting people together. Because
Sure.
If you talk to parents as a group, they're like, yeah, I don't think they should be on this, but they're all doing it.
Yeah.
So like, we got to kind of channel some of that movement and say,
We do.
This is the problem if we start them in first grade with those devices, right? If you really want to know where they are, there's devices you could put on your watch or something. But there's ways around it. But it's really letting the parents know and educating them.
Yeah.
Listen, every parent wants what's best for their kid.
Yes.
Right? I look back, I did some things that maybe if I had to do it again, probably wouldn't have gotten my phone at 12 or 13, right?
Sure.
But I did, right? But we're all going to have that. But we got to remember, like, that's the intention. Parents want what's best. So how do we empower them and teach them?
Sure.
This may not be the thing.
Yeah. In the state of Texas, they just passed this year a cell phone ban where kids are not allowed to have cell phones in school.
Did that mean?
We kind of, how they're going to navigate, but you know what? It's actually been
a
good thing.
I wholeheartally believe it. Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, I still think we have to teach these kids how to use it, because they're going to need to know how to use it and use it responsibly. And listen, you're competing against an algorithm that's smarter than all of us. It's designed to be so addictive that it's just we're all trapped by it, right?
Yeah.
But the start of getting it out of the schools, letting them sit in a classroom and listen to lessons full time for 30 minutes or whatever, then now you're using the muscle again. Now you're using that muscle of attention again. Now you're interacting between classes with kids. Now we're using that muscle again. Now we're growing those muscles. That makes sense. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about, we've had a great conversation. I want to talk about, your practice, if parents need help, students need help. Can I talk about your practice? Because we only, it's one thing to talk about strategies, but it's also important to have resources and professionals like yourself, because like with TikTok, you could watch something and try a couple strategies, but sometimes you might need additional support to kind of help with those, transitions in difficult time. Can you talk about your practice and, walk and talk therapy?
Yeah. So like our practice really was kind of built. It's so funny we're talking about transitions, because my practice was built out of a transition from a school, because I was a school social worker. I started prior practice, and then I had one night nobody's using my office, so I wrote another school social worker. Why don't you come in on this night and you see some people? And then I brought another school. And what I learned was that a lot of the private therapists out there, didn't really understand the school culture. Sometimes, the unique challenges teachers face, the unique challenges that the kids are facing. So to bring in that and kind of make that bridge with these school-based social workers. One, we found that parents really needed that. They needed somebody who understood what they're facing in school and the stressors they're facing in school and the social stressors they're facing in school. So that's how this whole thing started, and it's just grown from there. So, I mean, I really wholeheartedly believe that, we have to support the whole family. Just like in school, we have to support the whole class. When people come to us and we have a kid with anxiety, one, yes, you got to empower the kid with skills to how to deal with anxiety. At the same time, we got to empower the parents
Yes.
of how they're going to support them.
Absolutely.
They're just with us 1 hour a week, maybe, or 45 minutes. Like, so it's really just so much more than just working with the kid. We got to work with that whole unit. I call it kind of a wraparound approach where, we sometimes have family therapists in addition to our individual therapists, because, I work under the assumption parents want to support their kids to the best they can, and they sometimes don't know how.
Yeah.
The world has changed.
Sure.
Even the kids now grew up in a different world than their parents did that are younger than me. So, we're big on how do we involve the whole family. I truly believe, therapy is a great tool for people. It's a support for people. But and it needs to start being prioritized. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, right? If you're a teacher and you're stuck on a lesson, you ask for help. If you're an administrator and don't know what to do, ask your superintendent. If you're a parent, nobody had TikTok when I was growing up. We have no idea. We have no reference of this.
Sure.
So it's okay to ask for help, where a lot of our staff understand this world a little bit and they'll probably give, parents some guidance and some support with it.
That's awesome. And, what, as far as your services, who is it limited to certain states? Like, who can you serve? And do you offer, teletherapy kind of if someone wants to reach out to you?
Yes. So we serve primarily New York. We have a couple of clinicians licensed for teletherapy I think I'm licensed in North Carolina, a couple of people in Connecticut. So we're primarily New York based.
Okay.
Most of our practice is in person. I'm kind of a stickler, Alex, I'll tell you, as much as I'd love to say teletherapy.
Sure.
I think teletherapy is great. I don't think a teletherapy is great for those under 15.
Yeah.
Because they're on the device.
Yeah.
I want to use that muscle we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I am really kind of strict at our practice that if you're under 15, that you got to come in. And the benefits, we see it right away. It's critical, especially even those with a lot of anxiety issues, substance abuse issues. That being in person is very critical. With that said, we do see a lot of people on teletherapy, and it can be very effective depending on what you're dealing with, right? And it's also a great tool where if maybe you can't come in, there's a snowstorm, and I guess you don't get snowstorms in Texas anymore. But if there's something comes up and they can't get it, it's a great tool we use, and we actually use a lot during COVID. But a lot of practices are going more towards teletherapy. I'm just finding that the kids need to be in person. People with anxiety, adults with anxiety and depression need to be in person. So yes. I'm kind of really stressing that in-person treatment, whether it's with us or anybody. Like if you're in Texas, I think we're maybe overselling some of the teletherapy, in my professional opinion, which might not be a popular one, but I'll say that.
So how can someone reach you? What's your website? I did see just for those listeners, his practice has won some awards, has been recognized. So this is, a legitimate, a wealth of qualified experts that will definitely help you and your child, or
Thank you. I really, I'm very proud of the team we built. We got several people. We got 5 or 6 of us with over 20 years of experience. We got a lot of in-depth work. Our website is goodingwellness.com. We are here in Cold Spring Harbor, New York.
Okay.
So we do, in-person, virtual. As you mentioned before, we do take people outside and do walk and talk. And we also do a lot of other resources. So we have something interesting right now, which I'm going to throw out to your listeners because it doesn't matter where they are. But right now we have this anxiety. We're calling it an anxiety micro course.
Okay.
It's basically an email course where every day you're going to get an email once a day for 7 days. And it's just about anxiety, what it is, what it isn't, how to manage it. And it just gives you some tools, right? It's free. It's just a resource that we just, the more I can empower people to understand what's going on, the better they are. So I can certainly share that link and put it someplace for you so that, if anybody's interested in it, it's a great resource. Take some of that knowledge and find a therapist near you, because I try to do, we're trying to really make mental health talked about and normalized a little bit more. So
that's awesome. I
love the team we've created. I'm very proud of it, and I'm honored to be with the people that we have. So we have some pretty cool things, and we're also on Instagram and
yes,
Gooding Wellness PC and Instagram, and I don't know. I'm not on TikTok dancing or anything, but
You're missing out on your large demographic. Yeah.
who wants to see a 53-year-old man on TikTok? I'm lucky I'm on Instagram. Now they're sure my kids are like, I can't believe you're on Instagram. It's horrible. Yeah.
And what kind of recommendations, if someone's not in New York or another state, what are some things to look out for as far as, I know that, with therapists and it's sometimes finding the right one, but what are some things to help someone and say, hey, I have a list from my insurance company. How do I now narrow it down?
I love that question. So first of all, I will say, if you're looking for a kid, I'm going to say it again. Don't do virtual. Just please don't.
You heard it.
Mm-hmm. I mean it. I really mean it, because unless you're in some very isolated place and that's the only choice you have, in person, if for kids, people who are early in recovery of substance abuse, for people who are really struggling with anxiety and depression, all of those, the most, just being around someone else is a huge step of that.
Yes.
So that would be one thing. If you're looking for kids, my other red flag is if they're like, well, if they're going to see your kid and they're not going to bring you into sessions, that's a huge red flag.
Yes.
Okay. It happens all the time, unfortunately. So you want a therapist who you're going to ask them, how can I be involved in this? How can I be involved in their, because I want to support my kid. Mm-hmm. Right. Just like I said before, they're going to be with them all week. I'm with them 1 hour.
Exactly.
So how am I going to be a part of this treatment plan? Right.
Yes.
I always go with recommendations about, the other people have talked about, right? Like if someone has had a good experience, but it also comes down to personalities. Someone could say, Mr. Gooding's the greatest guy in the world or whatever. And then we talk and they might not feel as comfortable with me. That's not a jab at me. That's just, you got to find a vibe, right? Yes. You got to find something that's comfortable for you, but fully licensed. Because there's a lot of people out there life coaching and they're saying, oh, I'm here to help your kids, and they're life coaches. And that's not the clinical work that I think we need to really help some of our young people and our adults. Right. Yeah. So I actually, and if you want, I have a blog about that too, about how do we support our families, finding a therapist for you or for your kids. I have something I can share. I don't know if you have show notes or something.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll include the notes, because definitely, as much as we are aiming to help and talk, we also want to, network and also share the resources so that everyone can benefit, because, we definitely going to have parents listening. We're going to have students listening. We're going to have administrators look, and they could be anywhere in the world. We want to make sure this is an opportunity for people to, exactly.
And that's what I'm going to say one more time is remember that if you're looking for a therapist, that's for you. Ask the questions.
Yes.
Ask. Don't be like, oh, they have an opening, I'm just going to take it. Ask the questions.
Yeah.
It's your treatment. Like you would same do with a doctor or a babysitter or anything else, teacher. Like it's okay to ask questions and really make sure that you're comfortable with that and make sure they're the right fit. Not everybody specializes in everything.
Yes.
Right? If you're going to someone with eating disorders and they call me with eating disorder, I'm like, you're calling the wrong guy. I'm going to send you to who the right person is. But not everybody. And they say, oh, I do everything. Just be careful.
And I think that's so important, because sometimes, sometimes you might have a counselor that might not be willing to say, hey, that's not my specialty. Let me refer you to someone, so.
That's a strength. And that's, people, I think that's a really important thing in our field to know what I can and can't do. I know what I'm really good at, and I know where I'm like, marriage counseling. I have my colleague across the hall, Lisa, who does that. Okay. And I have Liana does my eating disorder stuff, right? Like, it's important that you know that, and not everyone has to know everything. It's like, just like teachers. You can't know everything in the world. Like, it's just focus on what we're good at. But I always try to leave people pointed in the right direction. So I always say, even if you call me and we can't help you, I'm going to try to point you in the right direction to get some good help, because it's important. We all need some support sometimes.
It is.
Especially our teachers.
Especially. And our social workers. And, yes, I kind of focus on teachers, but, if we have any social workers,
100%.
That are looking possibly to transition, into a private practice, any tips, any words of encouragement and wisdom as we close? I know that wasn't one of the questions I sent you, but, you've trailblazed. You've opened some doors that some people only wish, okay, what do I do next? Kind of any.
Yeah. if I'm gonna leave you with one question or idea, whether you're a social worker, you're a teacher, you're a psychologist, and you're thinking about what's next, I try to always think of what can I do?
Yes.
It's so easy to say, well, I have a full-time job, I can't do this, 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 this. I had a full-time job, but I could work one night a week to do something. Like focus on what you can do. I could start making phone calls. I could start reaching out to parent organizations or presenting at a PTA. Like, what can we do?
Yes.
Right. And coming from a space of empowering ourselves as opposed to just feeling we're hopeless and we can't do anything. It's a mindset. It's a total mindset. So if you're looking to the next thing, start being curious. Curiosity is good. I love curiosity. It's like, do I want to do that? Or maybe I want to do this. Like if you're a teacher, maybe you want to get into tutoring. Maybe you want to do, go into real estate. Like I've seen people transition to so many different things, but don't believe that you can't because it's new to you.
Yes.
Like if you would have told me I'd run and have this practice with 20 clinicians 10 years ago, I would have been like, there's no way.
Yeah.
It just happened. I trust the process. You just do the next right thing. So my advice would be just focus on what you can do and and little steps add up, Well,
on that note, again, I thank you for your time. I'm going to definitely include, Gordon's practice information and the blog and any resources that he's provided in our show notes. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for the great example and role model and all the things you do. We, especially from our friends at Meadow Elementary School and all the people that know you and love you.
Yes.
Thank you for just sharing your wisdom, your transparency, and just providing us with even a greater sense of hope today.
And I hope that your listeners know how you are the same. You are a beacon of hope, my friend. Watching your work, it's just I love watching what you're doing now.
Thank you,
when your heart and you're passionate in something, you're unstoppable. And I believe that.
Thank you, sir.
I'm very happy for you in this podcast.
Well, thank you again for your time.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
And thanks for joining us today. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with a colleague. Keep learning, keep growing, and never stop believing in your impact because you truly make a difference.